Today we're going to talk about Caucasus. Today we're going to talk about origins of the Caucasians, not the American Caucasians, but we're going to talk about real Caucasians, people of the North Caucasus. So I already did this video in Russian, but I also wanted to do it in English because there's not much actual digital information about it on YouTube from a Caucasian point of view. So today we're gonna talk about origins of many different cultures. We're gonna talk about Europeans, Southern Europeans, Western, Eastern. We're gonna talk about autosomal results, about general information. So let's start. First, we have periodization of the ancient history. We all know from the high school, from the junior school, that there's a Paleolithic time, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Copper Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. Yeah, Paleolithic time, it's 10,000 BC. Mesolithic 9,000, Neolithic 5,000, and 3,000 BC. I'll try to do this what you call this lecture really fast, so it's not too boring, I guess. What is an autosome? Autosomal DNA is a term used to describe DNA which is inherited from the autosomal chromosomes. An autosome is any of the numbered chromosomes as opposed to the sex chromosomes. Humans have 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. Autosomes are numbered roughly in relation to their sizes. That is, chromosome 1 has approximately 2,800 genes, while chromosome 22 has approximately 750 genes. So our autosomal DNA is your altogether information about your past, your DNA genes of your mother, grandmother, on your father's side, on your mother's side. So it's very huge information. That's why it's much more than just a E chromosome or mitochondrial chromosome like a female. It's all together. So how to take an autosomal test? You can take it. You can take the test in the following companies. There's a Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, Ancestry, Russian Genotech. There's also 23andMe. They have a little bit more options. You could, besides your autosomal mixtures, they also do like your pigmentations. Do you have like a blue eye genes, light hair genes, or maybe Alzheimer? If you have some some illnesses, so it's also actually pretty good. MyHeritage does that, and 23andMe. So next, what is the G25 coordinates? David Veselovsky, author of Origins Calculators, has released a new calculator called G25. What is the interest in G25? Over the past year, G25 has become the main ethnopopulation test. Almost all new samples from scientific papers are quickly transferred to the G25 format, plus enthusiasts create their own collections, some of which are very interesting. So, example results. This is my result. I did my test on using Family Tree DNA, my autosomal test. It's a family finder. So I have 52% Caucasus hunter-gatherer. I'm going to call it CHG. I have 26% Anatolian farmer, 10% EHG, European hunter-gatherer. So this is pretty standard Ingush. I'm an Ingush. It's a pretty standard Ingush result. Actually, lots of North Caucasians would have a similar result, like a minus plus 2, 3, 4%. So that's that. What is the paleo DNA? The study of ancient DNA revolutionized evolutionary genetics as it became possible to directly examine the past. Preserved in the time capsule of DNA, work in recent decades has shown that ancient DNA can be preserved in bones, teeth, mummified and frozen tissues, and can be extracted from these ancient samples. Ancient DNA was first extracted in 1984 from the desiccated muscle of an extinct zebra relative, but its analysis was entirely dependent on the development of this technology, so it became possible with the advent of DNA amplification. So that's paleo DNA. That's example of what archaeologists found in Samara. This is Yamnaya culture, paleo skeleton, I guess. Paleo DNA is what you call this, like a burial ground pit. Yamnaya. Yeah, a lot of information. Okay, so let's start from first component that is very frequent in Caucasus. This is Caucasus hunter-gatherer. Who is Caucasus hunter-gatherer? Caucasus hunter-gatherer, also known as CHG, also called Satsurblia cluster, is an anatomically modern human genetic lineage. First identified in 2015 study based on the population genetics of several modern Western Eurasians. It's European, Caucasian, and Near Eastern populations. Analyzed genomes from males from Western Georgia in the Caucasus from the late Upper Paleolithic. It's 13,000 years old. And Mesolithic, 9,700 years old. These two males carried and later refined to J1 haplogroup. To be precise, it's a J1 FT34521 and J2 Y12379, and mitochondrial haplogroups of K3 and H13C, respectively. Their genomes show that a continued mixture of the Caucasians with the populations took place up to 25,000 years ago, when the coldest period in the last ice age started. CHG separated from the Anatolian hunter-gatherer lineage later at 25,000 years ago. Yeah, so CHG, Caucasus hunter-gatherer, and Anatolian hunter-gatherer are relatives, and they got separated from approximately 25,000 years ago. Okay, so this is the cave Satsurblia, where first sample of Caucasus hunter-gatherer was found. It was very important because before scientists saw that signal from some Middle Eastern or Anatolian, but they couldn't know for sure what kind of signal was that. And 2015, I remember that time when they found this Satsurblia sample, and all answers got answered, I guess. All questions, got answered from this sample. This is a hypothetical reconstruction of Caucasus hunter-gatherer. As we can see, very brutal people. Very brutal people, right? So in their base, Caucasus hunter-gatherer was the mixture of ancestral North Eurasian and the component that was also found in Georgia called Jujuana. So approximately it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's 70% of Jujuana and 20-something% ancient North Eurasian. So this mixed, we got Caucasus hunter-gatherer. So if you see like an Anatolian farmer, it's much more fuller Jujuana-like component if we compare it to Caucasus hunter-gatherer, because Caucasus hunter-gatherer is a mixture of two components, as we can now see. Okay, who is Anatolian Neolithic farmer? ANF. The early European farmers moved into Europe from Anatolia through the Balkans from around 7000 BC and gradually spread north and westwards. Genetic studies have confirmed that early European farmer can be modeled as Anatolian Neolithic farmers with a minor contribution from WHG. WHG is a Western hunter-gatherer. It's one of the first Europeans that lived in Western Europe, Central Europe. It's mostly brought by model haplogroup I2, mostly, but also R1b V88, with significant regional variations. European farmer and hunter-gatherer populations coexisted and traded in some locales, although evidence suggests that the relationship was not always peaceful. Over the course of the next 4,000 years or so, Europe was transformed into agricultural communities, and WHG were displaced to the margins. So, as we can see, Anatolian Neolithic farmer sort of over over what you say, not genocided, but definitely overcame WHG, and lots of WHGs disappeared, I guess. But some survived, of course. But mostly, we can see that lots of male haplogroups kind of got disappeared, dismantled, killed, genocided. I don't know. So, during the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age, the early European farmer cultures were overwhelmed by new migrations from the Pontic-Caspian steppe by a group related to people of the Yamnaya culture, who carried Western steppe herder ancestry, and probably spoke an Indo-European languages. Once again, the population mixed, and the EEF, early European farmer ancestry, is common in the modern European populations, with EEF ancestry highest in the southern Europeans, especially Sardinians and the Basque people. So most of those early European farmers were G2A. G2A also a kind of a Caucasian haplogroup in some sense, because we have it in very high percentage in Georgia, in North Caucasus, Adig, Abkhaz. They also got really high percentage of it. So mostly it were G2A men, and to the lesser extent E1B1, J2, J2B. Also, there was lots of burial found with the C1A2 and also T. Yeah, that's Anatolian Neolithic farmer. Very important. Very important culture. It's in some European places. It goes like a number one component, and later goes after that goes Yamnaya. And what is Yamnaya? We're gonna learn now. So okay, so this is map of Anatolian Neolithic farmer. As we can see, the max we have in Sardinia, Italy, Greece, Albania, very high, Balkans. In Caucasus, we'll get to like 30%. Yep, 30%. And as you can see, if you go eastern, it gets smaller numbers. Northern also it gets kind of smaller, like Finland, a little bit smaller. Me personally, I have like maybe 28%, 29% of Anatolian Neolithic farmer. So let's go. This is a reconstruction of Anatolian Neolithic man, early European farmer, as we can see, very Mediterranean type. So he got, and for just for fun, I put like a mycob culture of Caucasus, mycob culture from Novosvobodnaya. eDNA is G2A2. Those people had J2A2 very often, and J2A1 like me. So it was mixed. And they had Anatolian Neolithic farmer up to 30%. But of course, their base was Caucasus hunter-gatherer. Okay, so let's go next. Okay, so this is very important. Yamnaya culture. Yamnaya culture is a very important culture for lots of Eurasians, because those nomads sort of conquered the worlds. Let's say the worlds, because they conquered different culture of WHGs, of Anatolian, and they sort of again like Anatolian. I guess we can say genocided WHGs, and after them, the same thing did Yamnaya people. They were mostly R1B men, also some R1A Z94 if I'm not mistaken. So let's get on with it. Yamnaya culture. Genetic analysis of Yamnaya genomes conducted by Ellen Toft 2015 and Hack 2015 revealed that Yamnans were a blend of three ancestral populations. The dominant element, 55%, was the Mesolithic Eastern hunter-gatherer, associated with the E haplogroups R1A and R1B. Then came the Caucasus hunter-gatherer admixture, making up about 25-35% of their genomes. This admixture is mainly associated with the E haplogroup J, J1, J2, and the indeed 1J sample was found in Mesolithic Russia, so it does happen, and hopefully in the future we'll get some more ancient samples. It has been confirmed that by ancient DNA that J2B was found among Neolithic farmers from East Transcaucasia, in this case northwest Iran. And there is a convincing evidence that these J2B farmers crossed the Caucasus to settle in the Volga-Ural region during the early Neolithic. Thirdly, there is an increasing amount of evidence that some R1B tribes crossed from the steppe to the East Transcaucasia. Yeah, very interesting. So, Yamnaya, it's a mixture of Eastern ESG, Eastern hunter-gatherer, and CSG women, Caucasus hunter-gatherer. So it was this interesting mix without EEF component, without Anatolian Neolithic farmer. Those Yamnaya got Anatolian Neolithic farmer a little bit later. We see some samples from Yamnaya from Bulgaria, from Romania. They got Anatolian component, but all those burials in Khvalinsk, in Samara, they got mostly CSG, ESG, and some WHG, if I'm not mistaken. The Yamnaya DNA samples recovered from the elite Kurgans graves in southern Russia belong overwhelmingly to haplogroup R1b Z2103. This is very important. This is a haplogroup that mostly had those Yamnaya guys, and right now it's very common still in Caucasus, in Turkey, in Armenia, in Balkans, and it's sort of a sprinkled all over the southern Europe, a little bit western, small amounts, of course, but because I guess they got instinct also at some point. The essentially eastern branch of the Indo-European R1b. The absence of other main R1b subclads is probably due to the dominance of the single royal or aristocratic lineage. I also always say lineage. I don't know. Among the Yamnayan elite buried in Kurgans. So we're understanding now that those R1b men, those Yamnaya people were mostly R1b Z2103. And I think also some R1A Z94 were also found, but I think it's much later. So I guess this is a reconstruction of Yamnaya guys from from Baldereva, Astrakhan Oblast. It's actually it's kind of North Caucasus still, I think. So as we can see here, Yamnaya guys, they were a mix of Caucasus hunter-gatherer and Eastern hunter-gatherer, ESG plus CSG. But here it says a little bit, it shows a little bit wrong. It's not CSG men, it was mostly ESG men and CSG women. And this is the map of different Anatolian cultures. We have Steppe Maikop outlier, Yamnaya Ukraine, North Caucasus Yamnaya Kalmykia, Afanasyevo, Samara, Caucasus. And we could see that ESG is a blue one, still pretty significant. And CSG, look, it's almost a half. Almost a half of those Yamnaya guys were CSG, and also Anatolian, of course, a little bit Anatolian, and just some sprinkled WHG, those old Western hunter-gatherer who got genocided, I guess, got a little bit extinct. Okay, so this is Vahadu G25 coordinates of Yamnaya burials, Yamnaya samples. We have Yamnaya Bulgaria, Kalmykia, Karagash, Mereke, Romania, Samara. And again, we could see that they have main component is ESG, Eastern European hunter-gatherer, and second one is Caucasus hunter-gatherer. It goes usually by like a second component, but we could also see that in Bulgaria and in Romania and Ukraine, this sample, they had some Anatolian farmer also. So that's why if you compare modern populations to Yamnaya people, they got very bad fit, very long distance, because nowadays there's no people who no Europeans who doesn't have Anatolian farmer. But those Yamnaya guys, they were mostly mixture of EHG and CHG. That's why if you compare modern populations to them, they have like really far very bad fit, because now everybody has Anatolian farmer. So this is the map of Yamnaya. As we can see, around the world, 45%, 50% Scandinavia, 40% in Dagestan, 39% in Caucasus, still pretty good amount, like 24, 25. Of course, in Russia, 45, 43, Balkans 30, 40 also. Different. Italy goes a little bit smaller amounts, 26, 28, 27. 28, also Spain, and as we can see, if you go a little bit southern, North Africa very small, Middle East much smaller, like 8%, 9%, and also actually in India, in Pakistan, there's a respectable amount, like 29%, 30%, 25. So yeah, it's interesting. So this is a map of CSG. Katias Upper Paleolithic ancestry, based on G25 coordinates. As we can see, the highest amounts are in Caucasus, 50%, 60%, 40%. And then next would be Turkey. In Turkey, there's also significant percent, 20%, 21, 30. Later, it gets smaller and smaller, but it's still, even in whole Europe, there's like up to 15% in some places, CSG. In Russia, up to 15%. In Western Europe, up to 12%, 10%. Still, I think that's a significant amount of component. Not too bad. Okay, this is G25 Vahadu of Ingushian people. I'm an Ingush, so I decided to talk about Ingush genetics. We have main components are CSG, after that it's Anatolian farmer, and after that it's ESG, European hunter-gatherer. We have up to 50% CSG, 25-30% Anatolian farmer, and up to the average would be 13% of ESG. But I've seen some samples who had 16%, 18%, so that varies. That's for you who are interested in North Caucasus, and I'm gonna talk now a little bit more about Caucasian DNA, what we have right now. This was from Stone Age perspective. This is for Bronze Age perspective. We have Caucasus EBI, main one, and the West Eurasia steppe. This is actually Yamnaya component. The average would be 23%, but we need to understand that this Caucasus EBI already had a few percentage of steppe, so that's why it eats some of the steppe percentages. So real would be like 26, 27, 26, 24, 25. Yes, Salmon Gush has 28. I personally seen private tests of Salmon Gush who had 29, 28. So yeah, it happens. So this is the of different Caucasian groups, different nations. I decided to do sort of a mix. We have Abazin, Abkhaz, Avar, Adyghetes, Balkarts, Chechens, Cherkess, Darginians, Ingushians, Kabardians, Kalmykians, Karachay, Kubachi, Kalmyki, Ossetians right here. So basically, it's a little bit similar and a little bit not. If you like compare to like a Avar and Dargin and Laktse, Kubachinцы, they have really high EHG. It's very ancient signal. They have a pretty big step, but it comes from the catacomb culture, definitely. So it's very ancient admixture. If you see other, they have also a little bit Sintashta. If you talk about Karachay, Balkar, they have, if I'm not mistaken, mostly from like a Sintashta. Ossetians also have 7%, 9% from Sintashta, I guess. It's like a Proto-Indo-Iranian component. But mostly it's very similar, but of course if you see like here Kalmyki and Nagaitse, it's very eastern populations. It's very Eastern Asian populations, and they have East Asian up to 80%, up to 47%. Yeah, and Nagaitse also have like Caucasian components, 20% EHG, some 8% CHG. Yeah, like a Kalmyki has very small amounts. Okay, let's go next. This is Georgian samples. Georgia from Adjaria, Imeretia, Kakheti, Kartli, Khivsur, Northern, Megrel, Meskhetins, Svane, Tusheti. That's a northern Georgia, very close to Vainakh people, to Ingush, to Chechens. And we also see the main one would be Caucasus hunter-gatherer, the second would be Anatolian farmer, and almost lacking EHG. AG only have like a Hifsur, Tush, almost non-existent EHG, but their main component are these two: Caucasus hunter-gatherer, CAG, and Anatolian. This is Ossetian, just for your interest, The main one is the Caucasus. They supposedly be Alans and Skif, but they have very Caucasian admixtures. It's Caucasus and up to an average 15% West Eurasian, yeah, 5% East Asian. Ossetians from Stone Age, also very similar to lots of North Caucasians. CSG, Anatolian, and then ESG. Average would be 8% of their EHG, which is very interesting. Okay, so this is the Chechens, Chechen Stone Age admixture. It's very similar to Ingush. Caucasus hunter-gatherer, first one, second one Anatolian. ESG is a little bit higher. If you see, they got 18%, 17%, some of them. So, but in general, it's very similar. Just for fun, I decided to put also like a English samples, modern, and this is very similar to most of the modern populations of Europe. The first one, Anatolian farmer or Eastern hunter-gatherer, and second one, Caucasus, and WHG, Western hunter-gatherer. So this is very standard for many Europeans, Western Europeans, Central Europeans. So it's just for fun. Okay, so this is some of the ancient samples from North Caucasus. Middle Bronze Age, Maykop culture, Novosvobodная, Maykop culture late. Middle Bronze Age had the J2B, Maykop culture G2A2A, also J2A1, And surprisingly, late Mycop culture was found L, which is not like very common, but it's common in Ingush and Chechens, but there's a different branches of it. So still in autosomal information, we see that the most it's CHG up to 50 to 60%. Second one will be Anatolian farmer, and thirdly, in this we don't have much EHG. Only Mycop culture has a little bit AHG. Yeah. Next one is a little bit more North Caucasian, except Kuraraxis. Let's not see this right now. Kaban culture, we have a very diverse haplogroup. It's 800 to 400 BC. Haplogroup D, E. If you see E right now, actually Karachay Balkar has. I saw that they had I think up to 4 or 5%, and also J2A1A. The closest on a tree was people J2A from Karachay and Balkar. So Kaban culture, it's very interesting. Lots of similarities towards like North Caucasians. And next one is R1A and R1B. So this is just for your information right now. So I hope you'll be interested in this. Next one is North Caucasian Khazar period. We got R1A, and I think it's more. It's a little bit more modern times. It's 8 AD, 880 AD, so it's a little bit our times. Because Kabon culture is BC, it's very ancient, and still we have like a. If you see, this is very modern North Caucasian admixture. The first one CSG 52%, Anatolian 32%, European hunter-gatherer 10%. It's like mine. Mine is very similar to this. I even have like a Zagrosian only like 1% or 2%. Yes, and next, Kuraraxis is very ancient. I mistakenly put it right here. I was supposed to put it before that, but still, you see, Kuraraxis, we have main components is CSG, Anatolian farmer, but no ESG. But some Urartian samples had a little bit more ESG. Yeah, also Khazar period, very showing like a modern North Caucasian populations. This is reconstruction of Alan from Alagir. He had R1A haplogroup and very close to Chechen sample. You see those Alan burials right now. We have 5 samples. One is Q, other one is R1A, and female haplogroups we have H, H5, HV, U4, W. It's very European mitochondrial haplogroups. So the samples called DA146, 160, 162, 164, and 243. So right now, of course, we have problems in terms of the ancient paleo samples. We need more paleo samples, but right now what we have is this 5 samples, and using these 5 samples we do most of the work. As we can see, it's clearly a Caucasian person. It has 35% CSG, Anatolian farmer, European hunter-gatherer, and Zagrosian. The closest to this sample was Chechen, Ingush, Kumyk, Adyghe, Tabasaran, so all North Caucasians. Yes, this is information about Alans. Alans were steppe people first mentioned in Roman literature in 1st century CE. It is affirmed on both archaeological, historical, and linguistic grounds that it's 2nd, 3rd century CE. And a branch of Sarmatians moved into the North Caucasus, forming the North Caucasian Alan culture. So as we can see, this is from a Stone Age point of view, those 5 samples. Well, pretty standard, you know. That's my sample. Still, Caucasus CSG, Anatolian farmer, Eastern European hunter-gatherer. And this sample is very similar, well, much more towards like an Eastern Caucasus because it has some more Iranian farmer, interestingly enough. This is the samples that I took from from Vahadur database. It's Alan does 46, 60, 62, 64, 43. So you know what I did. And this is using the Bahadur distance. What we have, the most similar in terms of the distance and closeness. The closer to this sample was Kumyk, Adygheцы, Ingushi, Chechens. To 164 was again Kumyk, surprisingly enough, Chechens, Kabardians, Ingush. So we very close to them. And Rusalan Da 243, also Chechens, Tabasaran, Eastern Caucasus a little bit, Kumyk, Ingush. So we very high up there. Yeah, just for interest, Ossetians here, here, and here. This is 162 is much closer for Ossetians. You see, it's right here. For people who are interested. Next one is Alan 160. Yeah, I think I didn't. Yeah, 160. This Alan is much more closer to Cherkessians, to Adige people. Yeah, Kabardians, Adige, Karachay-Balkar, Kumyk, and a little bit closer to Ossetians. It's 03, but again, it's much closer to this one. And this is our much more eastern, who are with a little bit higher Zagrozian component, the 146. Yeah, so this was our lecture. I hope I was very objective. I wanted to make this very informative and kind of gather all the information that I could. So hopefully it was interesting. Please subscribe to the channel. Like the post, and see you next time. Thank you.